In this video, I will build 11 small projects in Python with the help of ChatGPT. You will see the whole process of creating these projects. The projects we're going to build: random password generator, URL shortener, generate avatar images from the user initials, generate Excel file and download, fully functional CRUD application, QR code generation from the URL, formatting dates to the human readable format, convert XML to JSON, use some free API to generate random jokes, parse HTML content, extract URLs and save that in a file, random uuid generator without any external packages. At the end of the video, I'm going to share what lessons I learned while I was working on these projects. These lessons are very important and will make your experience with ChatGPT much easier and smoother. So make sure you watch the video till the very end. Alright, let's start building project number 1. Before we start building these projects, make sure you have installed the latest version of Python and pip. Go to website python.org/download and download Python for your operating system. After you do this, open your desired terminal and type python --version, and you should see Python version 3 point something. Some of the applications use Flask. If you get errors like no module named Flask, you should run pip install Flask inside your project folder. Now, let's focus on the projects. Now, let's open ChatGPT and ask, can you create random password generator in Python? Please consider the following types of characters: letters, digits, and symbols. And here's the answer from ChatGPT. It actually gave us the whole explanation and Python code, exactly what we are looking for. ChatGPT also gave us a recommendation not to use the following implementation on production because the function is not cryptographically secure. It is recommended to use Python's secrets library instead. Let's ask ChatGPT to rewrite this function and use Python secrets library in this case. And here's the answer from ChatGPT. It actually imported the secrets package, and it also gave us the information that the secrets library is only available in Python version 3.6 and above. As you can see right here, the function has hard-coded 10, which always generates the passwords with the length of 10. I actually wanted to take the length from the user, so I asked ChatGPT, please take the password length as a prompt from the user. And here's the answer from ChatGPT. Right here, ChatGPT is reading the information from the user prompt and uses that as a length of the random password. I'm going to ask one last question. Let's add a second prompt from the user, which will be how many passwords I want to generate. And ChatGPT again gave me exactly what I asked for. Right here, it accepts two arguments, the desired password length and number of passwords to generate. I'm going to copy the code and open VS Code. I'm going to create Python file and call it passwordgenerator.py. I'm going to paste my copied content right there, and then I'm going to open new terminal, and I'm going to execute my Python file. I'm going to specify 16 and 5. And as you see right here, Python script generated 5 random passwords. However, the passwords are written all in a single line. I want each password to be printed on its own line. Again, I'm going to open ChatGPT and ask, can you print the passwords each on its own line? And here we got updated code as well as detailed explanation what has been changed in the previous code. So it's a perfect example. You can see how ChatGPT actually remembers the context and gives you updates based on the previous answers. Right here, it just prints the password instead of pushing this into an array. We're going to copy that and open the VS Code, replace our previous content, save that, then open terminal again, execute the function, specify right here the password length as well as the number of passwords, and here we see the output. This time, I'm going to make it even more complex and ask ChatGPT to create Flask API for URL shortener. And surprisingly, ChatGPT did everything correctly. It imported all the necessary packages, created the Flask application, set up the routing, and finally ran that application. Here we have the detailed explanation and kind of disclaimer that this is not production-ready solution. Having a look at existing code, it's obvious that ChatGPT is saving the URLs in internal map objects. But I wanted to save the object somewhere in more permanent storage, so I asked it to save the URLs inside the JSON file. Unsurprisingly, ChatGPT did this exactly as I asked for. It assumed that there was a URLs JSON file, and it's reading that file and saving existing URLs into a URLs variable, and then in the rows it's basically putting that information inside the file or reading that from the file. ChatGPT again gave us kind of disclaimer that this is not production ready solution, and it told us two important things. The hash function used here is MD5, which is not collision resistant. Also, JSON file will not be the best solution for large scale usage, as it may become slow when the number of records increases. So I asked ChatGPT to use collision resistant function. Why not? Said ChatGPT, and it imported and used SHA-256 function instead of MD5. And it basically rewrote the entire code using that function. I said, thank you very much, and I copied the code, opened VS Code, created new file, URL shortener.py, pasted the code, opened the terminal, and run it. Here we have our Flask API up and running. Now we're going to create a short version of the URL. For this, I'm going to use VS Code's Rapid API extension. I'm going to open the extension, change the method into post. I'm going to specify right here the Flask API URL. I'm going to adjust the body and specify right here the URL needs to be something. And in this case, I'm going to paste my channel, YouTube channel URL, and click the send request. And finally, it returned the shortened URL code. Now, in the browser, I'm going to type 127.0.0.1, port 5000, and the hash, which was returned from the Flask API. This is the shortened version of the URL. As soon as you hit the enter, it's going to redirect us to my channel page. And just like this, we created fully functional URL shortener Flask API using ChatGPT in under 3 minutes. Now, let's ask ChatGPT to write Python script which will accept first name and last name as prompt and generate avatar image with the initials of the first name and last name on that image. At this point, ChatGPT told me that he wasn't able to write code or generate images, which is kind of incorrect. However, it provided a detailed outline what I need to do to create such a script. And after that outline, it actually gave me the code. ChatGPT imported all the necessary packages, created an image, draw that image, then selected the font. It took the text to be AB as hard-coded at the moment and put that text in the center of the image. Also the image width and height, it took it as a 200. And it saved the image. The result was not exactly what I was looking for, so I asked another question: can you update the code to accept user first name and last name as prompt and generate image from the initials of the first name and last name? And certainly it gave me the answer right here. Now ChatGPT is reading the first name and last name from the input, generating initials. The rest of the code at this point is the same. However, at the end of the script, it is saving the final file in first name underscore last name underscore avatar.jpg, which is a very relevant name. In the script, the background color of the image is always hard-coded. I didn't want that, so I asked ChatGPT to generate always a random color for the image. That's an easy job, said ChatGPT, and it updated existing script and gave me random color every time. So it is randomizing red, green, and blue channels, and then it's creating new image with these random channels. The last thing I wanted was to generate rounded images, so I asked this to ChatGPT as well. This was not also a problem for ChatGPT. It created circular mask, created and then put that on the image. So finally, it generates a rounded image, and it also changed the extension of the saved file, saved image, into PNG. That code looks perfect for me. I'm going to copy the code, open VS Code, create a new file, generate avatars, and paste my code. One thing that wasn't mentioned by ChatGPT is that this code might need to install Pillow package. If it requires, you just need to run pip install Pillow in your terminal, and then you can run the code. Let's execute the code, and I'm going to specify my first name and last name, and Here it is, it generated the avatar with the initials of my first name and last name. Now let's try on a second name, John Smith, and here we go, it also generated that avatar. The only thing I wanted to modify was that 200 by 200 was kind of large, so I decided to change this into 100 on 100. So I didn't ask this to ChatGPT. Let's open the file, search 200 everywhere in the file, and replace it with 100. Now let's execute the script one more time. Let's specify Mary Smith, and here's the avatar with MS inside the avatar image. I think this is perfect. Now, I'm going to make it even more complex for ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask, can you create a Flask website which will have a single input field in the center of the website? The input will accept the URL, make requests to that URL, get the response, generate an Excel file based on the response, and downloads that Excel file to the user. After my question, ChatGPT started thinking, and after several seconds, it gave me the following answer. The answer is fully textual, it didn't give me any kind of code, it just gave me a brief idea how I can achieve this using Flask website, and it also mentioned that I can use send file function to allow the user to download the file. Then I asked ChatGPT, can you generate code for that? And after this, ChatGPT gave me code. Here's an example of Flask application that implements the functionality you described. That was the answer from ChatGPT, and it showed me the whole code. Right here we have the imports, we have the creating the Flask application, we have the main index route. Let's take a second and analyze this code. The route accepts both get and post methods, and it checks if the method is post. In this case, it gets the URL from the post and then takes that URL to make request, get the response, and create the Excel file. And then it sends this generated Excel file to the user as an attachment, which will force the user's download screen. If the request method is not post and it's get, it simply renders the form. ChatGPT went a step farther, and it even showed me the whole HTML code, which is not that big, but it's still there, and it also indicated that I need to put this HTML in the templates folder. So I have full instructions what I need to do. I just need to just connect them together, and I think I will have the final application. I copied the Python code and opened VS Code. I created a file, download excel.py, and I'm going to paste in my Python code right there. After this, I created a templates folder inside which I created index.html. Then I copied all the HTML ChatGPT gave and generated for me, and I pasted this in the index.html. Then I opened the terminal and executed the file. But I got an error, no module named pandas. Actually, ChatGPT gave me like a sentence disclaimer that I needed to have pandas xlsx writer and request packages installed. So I just asked ChatGPT how to install these packages, and it gave me the exact answer I was looking for. So I copied these 3 lines of code, opened VS Code, pasted right there, hit the enter, and my packages have been installed. Then I rerun my download excel.py, and the development server was started. Then I opened in the browser localhost port 5000, and we see single input field with the button next to it. So we needed some kind of URL to paste this in the input field and click the button to download the Excel. So I just typed in the Google JSON placeholder. I opened the JSON placeholder TimeCodes.com, went to the user's endpoint, copied that URL, and pasted this in the input field and just clicked the button. And as you see, data.xls is about to be downloaded. I'm going to save this in the downloads, and now let's open it. Here's the content in my Excel, and as you see, we have 10 users and every information about the user that is available on the endpoint. So as you see, the application is there and it's working. This time, I'm going to tell ChatGPT to create fully functional CRUD application. And here's my prompt. Can you generate Flask and Halon CSS website where to-do items will be displayed? Users should be able to add new to-do items, delete them, or mark them as done or undone. Pay attention right here that I made a typo. Instead of Flask, I typed Flash, which is absolutely different technology. Let's see how ChatGPT will understand this and respond. Surprisingly, ChatGPT understood that I meant Flask, not Flash. And then it gave me methods to create new to-do item or read all to-dos. Okay, so far so good, but I want to make things easier for me, so I asked it, can you please add delete to-do and give me the whole Python code, because I don't want to copy and paste certain methods, I want the entire Python code. In this case, ChatGPT did like it does in most of the times, it created the delete to-do and it did much more. It gave me updated read to-dos and it also introduced now to-dos HTML. So it's basically using that to-dos HTML when rendering to-dos, and it also gave me the whole Python code. The only thing that is missing in the Python code is the code snippet which actually runs the Flask application. But in existing code, ChatGPT uses models, database ORM models, which I don't want. So I asked ChatGPT, can you replace saving and reading to-dos from the JSON file? And ChatGPT gave me updated Python code. In this case, it reads and writes the data from the JSON file. Very often when you start conversation with ChatGPT and ask to modify its previous code, in the modified code, it misses a few things. For example, in the previous code, there are imports for the Flask application, but in the latest code, the imports are missing. Now, let's copy entire Python code, open VS Code. I'm going to create new folder, to-do list, app, and I'm going to create app py inside there and just paste my Python code. Because imports were missing in the latest Python code, I copied it from the previous code and pasted in the VS Code. Let's have a look at the quick overview of this code. We register a couple of roles. In the create to-do, we get the to-do text from the request, we create new to-do, we open the to-do's JSON file and load the data into data variable, then we append the new to-do inside data to-dos, we open the to-do's JSON file again for writing, we write it and redirect user to the to-dos. Then in the delete to-do, we accept the to-do ID, we open the file again, we remove from the to-dos by to-do ID, and we write back inside the JSON. And inside to-dos, we just open the file and render that into the to-dos.html. Previously generated HTML code snippet was not full version of HTML, so I asked ChatGPT to generate entire HTML code. It also explained very clearly what tolerances classes it used and what these classes are actually doing. I copied entire HTML code, opened my VS Code, created todos.html file and pasted it right there. Then I tried to start my Flask application, but something is wrong. The application is not starting. I could debug this problem by myself, but I asked ChatGPT to give me entire Python code because I thought something was missing there. And again, ChatGPT provided entire Python code and entire HTML code. But surprisingly, the same thing is missing in the Python code, and that's the code which actually starts the Flask application. This time, ChatGPT also indicated that I needed to create todos.json file with the following template. Then I copied the latest Python code, I also created todos.json file, and I copied latest HTML code. So I'm sure that I have the latest code ChatGPT suggested. Then I tried to start the application, but the application still didn't start. Then I debugged the problem by myself, found what was missing, and added there manually. Now Flask application is starting, but when I access the URL/todos, I get the following error: enumerate is undefined. So I just copied the error and asked ChatGPT, what does this error mean? Enumerate function was used to get the index of each individual to-do as well. And ChatGPT explanation was pretty clear. It told me that enumerate function was not defined in our template engine, and it suggested to use loop.index instead of using enumerate function. And it also gave me the whole updated HTML for that. So instead of having enumerate in my code, I replaced this with the version ChatGPT suggested, and also whenever I was using I keyword in my template inside the loop, I replaced it with the loop.index. Now when I reload the page, I see the application is working. We can add a couple of to-dos right here. Let's try to mark them done or undone. And whenever we do this, if you notice, there is some kind of bug. It's when you click the mark on the second item, it actually marks the third item as done. There's some sort of indexing issues in the Python code. I open Python code and in functions mark done and delete, I just subtracted 1 to the given index, because it was always using the index on which I clicked plus 1. And here is the final application. You can create to-dos, mark them as done or undone, and delete them. Now let's move on to the next project. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, can you create QR code generator with a Flask? On front end, there should be a single input. User pastes URL inside the input, and Flask will generate QR code for that and display that to the user in the browser. Here are all the instructions from ChatGPT. It provided Python code. It also indicated that we needed to create index.html under templates folder, and it also provided code snippet, the form code snippet of the HTML. And it also gave us instruction that we need to install Pillow package in order to make this code working. This is awesome. I don't have any more questions regarding this project, so I'm just going to copy and paste the code into VS Code. Now I'm going to create new folder QR code generator. Inside there, I'm going to create app.py and templates folder and index.html inside there. In app.py, I'm going to copy and paste the Python code. In index.html, I'm going to first generate some HTML boilerplate code and then copy the form code and paste this into HTML. Okay, so we have the project ready. Now I'm going to navigate into the folder and execute pip install pillow. And now we can execute the project. Python app.py, and we have an error. No module named QR code. It looks like we are using QR code, but it is not installed. For some reason, ChatGPT did not tell us that we also needed to install QR code. So I copied the error and asked ChatGPT what I need to do for this error. As always, ChatGPT answer was more than enough. I just needed pip install command, so I executed pip install QR code. Now I'm going to execute python app.py, and the Flask server is up and running. If we access in the URL, we see input as well as the button. Now I'm going to open my YouTube channel link, youtube.com/thecodeholic, paste in the input field, and I'm going to click the button. The image is broken, so something is wrong right there. Let's go in the index.html and have a look what variable is actually used. We are using image variable in the source. Now let's go in the website and view page source. So what is outputted in the source? As you can observe right here, we have the QR code image pil image object. So the image variable in the HTML is actually an object, not the source. So probably in the image variable, we need to convert this image variable into some kind of source. Then I went into ChatGPT and asked, image is not displayed in the browser. The ChatGPT started answering me, but at some point it stuck and showed me an error. Then I reloaded the page and clicked regenerate response. And this time ChatGPT gave me an excellent answer. It explained that there was something wrong in the previous code. I could not simply use the image variable to display to use as a source, and it updated the Python code and gave me exactly what was necessary to convert the image variable into an actual URL. Previously it was stuck probably because it knew that it gave me wrong answer. It also provided updated image tag, which I needed to put in the HTML. So I copied the Flask method and updated that. I also copied imports and pasted in my project. I also updated in HTML and used image_source instead of image variable, just like ChatGPT indicated. Now I'm going to open Flask application, copy my channel URL, paste and hit the button, and voila, we see QR code. If you enjoyed this video so far, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's test this on another URL. I'm going to open my website, thecodeholic.com, open my Laravel e-commerce website course link. I'm going to copy and paste in the input and click generate. And here is the QR code. If you pause the video right now, please scan this QR code and it should open my Laravel e-commerce course link. If it correctly opened the link, please have a look at the course. Maybe you like it. If it didn't correctly open the link, you can hit the dislike button on the video. In this project, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create Python script, which will accept date as a prompt from the user, and it will convert the date into user-readable format. And the example is that I'm going to provide the absolute date format, and it will convert this into relative, such as 23 hours ago. And here is the code provided by ChatGPT. It imported datetime and define the function. It accepts string and parses that string. Then it subtracts the date into current time and understands what's the difference. And then based on some comparison, it evaluates either minutes ago or hours ago or days ago. This code looks nice. The only thing it doesn't support is dates in the future. I want to handle cases when the date is in the future, and in this case, I want the string to be printed in the console to be just 15 minutes. Here is the updated code from ChatGPT. The main difference here is that we have if-else statement. In the if, ChatGPT is checking if the date is in the past, then it calculates that the string should be some time ago. In else case, it handles the situation when the date is in the future, and then it just prints 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever minutes or seconds. This code looks nice. I'm going to copy this code, open VS Code, and create new file, human readable date. I'm going to paste my code right there, open the terminal, and I'm going to try to execute this script. It prompts me to enter the date format, so I'm going to provide the date in the correct format and hit the enter. And I see 2 hours. That's because I entered the date in the future. Now I'm going to enter date but in the past. And now I see 1 hour ago. Of course, the script can be improved, and instead of just writing 2 hours, it could write in 2 hours, or instead of writing 1 hour ago, it should probably just say 1 hour ago. But I will leave this challenge to you. This time, we're going to create a random joke generator. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create console application which generates random jokes. Use some free API to fetch random jokes. Whenever the application is executed, it should generate 3 random jokes. The application created by ChatGPT is pretty straightforward. It imported requests, it is using jokeapi.dev for random jokes, then it makes requests, get the jokes from the response, and just prints that. While ChatGPT was writing detailed explanations, it showed network error. So I clicked regenerate response and it simply continued. Alright, let's copy the Python code. I'm going to open VS Code, create randomjoke.py file and paste the Python code right there. Now let's execute the Python code, and here we see 3 random jokes. The application is super simple, so I wanted to make it a little bit more complex. So I decided to convert this into Flask application. So I opened ChatGPT and asked, can you convert this into Flask application where there will be a button in the center when you open the application? When you click the button, it will show 3 random jokes on the page. What do you think? What was the answer from ChatGPT? The answer was, of course I can do that. And it provided the Flask application code, it moved the initial console application code into a Flask method, and it also created the first method, which is the index method. It also introduced 2 new files, home.html and jokes.html. So the idea is that first, whenever you open the application, it renders home.html. When you click the button, it's going to submit on different route and it's going to render jokes.html. Okay, let's copy Python code and open VS Code. I'm going to delete existing Python file, random jokes file, and I'm going to create new folder random jokes. And I'm going to create app.py inside there and paste the copied Python code. I'm going to also create templates folder and inside there home.html and jokes.html. I'm going to copy and paste home.html as well as jokes.html content from ChatGPT into VS Code. Now I'm going to execute this using Python app.py, and I get the error. Flask is not installed. So we're going to simply execute pip install flask. Now let's try to start the application, and here it is started. When we open the application, we see the random jokes title as well as the button. When we click to the button, we get this error. Zip is undefined. It looks like, again, ChatGPT didn't give us correct code. I'm going to copy the error, open ChatGPT, and ask, what does this error mean? It's funny, but ChatGPT actually apologized for the confusion. It explained that the zip function is a Python function, not Jinja 2 template engine function, which is used when rendering HTML. ChatGPT also provided updated jokes.html and jokes Flask method. I copied updated jokes.html and pasted in the VS Code, and I also copied updated Python code and replaced my entire app.py. Flask server was automatically reloaded, so we just need to refresh the page, and click Get Jokes, but we don't see result. Now, I'm going to try to debug the problem by myself. On line 22, we see that the jokes variable is actually list of tuples. However, in the jokes HTML, each joke from the jokes array is used like a dict. So we need to change this and use each joke like a tuple, and we need to take element from 0 and element on index 1. Then if we just reload the page and click Get Jokes button, we see the result. Our random jokes generator application with Flask successfully works. If you like this video and if you learned something new, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's move on the next application, and in this case, I'm going to build XML to JSON converter. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create Flask application which will convert XML into JSON. I want on the website to be one text area and button. Users will paste XML content and it should convert it into JSON and print it on the website. ChatGPT provided 4 main steps to accomplish this task. First is to install the necessary packages. We need to install Flask and XML to dict package. Next, ChatGPT provided Flask code. This is very simple code. It's importing all the necessary packages and creating one route, only one route, which handles both the rendering of the page as well as when you submit it, it converts this XML into JSON and prints that. Next step is to create index.html under templates folder. This is very basic HTML. The only main component we have inside there is the form component, which has a button and text area. And we also check if the JSON output variable is given into the template, then we just print that JSON output. And the last step is to run our Flask application by executing python app.py. Everything is so clear and so straightforward that I just need to follow the steps. I'm going to copy the code to install Flask and XML to dict. But first, I'm going to open VS Code and create the folder XML to dict. Inside there, I'm going to create app.py. I'm going to create also templates folder, and inside there, I'm going to create index.html. Then I'm going to navigate into XML to JSON folder and run pip install Flask and XML to dict. Then let's open ChatGPT and copy Python code. I'm going to paste this into app.py. Then I'm going to copy HTML and paste this in the index.html. Now I'm going to execute python app.py. And the development server is up and running. Now let's open localhost port 5000 and we see the following screen: title, text area, and button. Now I need XML to paste in the text area. So I asked ChatGPT to provide sample XML file content. So it provided very simple bookstore XML with 2 books inside there. I copied XML content, opened the website, pasted and hit the button. And I see JSON output. However, this is not exactly as I want. My idea is to copy the output to JSON and paste it somewhere, and it should be valid JSON. In this case, it looks like it is already string, but again stringified into JSON. In this case, the output looks like we are calling to JSON 2 times. Now let's have a look what's going on in the Flask route. So first, we convert XML into dict, then we convert dict into actual JSON, and then again JSONify is called on that already JSON. So that is the problem right here. We just need to avoid JSONify, remove that completely, and just return JSON output. That's going to be exactly what we need. So I modify the code, reload the browser, and here we go. So we have actual JSON, which is exactly what I want. So whenever I copy that and paste it in somewhere, it is an actual JSON, not JSON of already converted JSON. So this JSON content can be formatted nicely, and you can save this into a file and use it for testing purposes. Now, let's move on to the next project. In this project, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create Python script, which will access to the URL amazon.com, grab the HTML, parse it and extract all the links and saves that as a list in the JSON file, urls.json. The code provided by ChatGPT is very clear and straightforward. It's making requests to the provided URL amazon.com, fetching the content, parse this using the package Beautiful Soap, and then finds all the A links, grabs that href, collects into URLs, and saves that finally into JSON file. Now I'm going to open VS Code and create folder extract URLs. Inside there, I'm going to create app.py. Then I'm going to copy Python script and put this in the app.py. Now I'm going to try to execute app.py, but I get the following error. I'm going to copy the error and ask ChatGPT. I get the following error. ChatGPT gave me the necessary instructions. I just need to run pip install beautiful soap, and the package is installed. Now we can execute Python app.py, and it looks like that it worked. Now let's open urls.json and have a look. Unfortunately, I don't see all the links I expect right there. I think when we make requests to Amazon.com and not passing the proper headers, Amazon blocks the request and doesn't return proper response. So I'm going to debug this and print response.text right here. Now let's execute Python app.py, and we see response printed. If we copy that response and open in a new tab, then if we observe this, that we see something went wrong. Amazon didn't return proper response, again, if we don't pass correct headers. Okay, let's try on different domain. I'm going to provide my website, thecodeholic.com, and let's have a look. We executed Python app.py, and now let's have a look in the URLs.json, and as you see, we have much better result than we had on the Amazon case. There are a couple of external links, as well as some of them are internal. I don't want the external links to be included in this list, and I also want the relative links to be with the domain, so I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do this for me. ChatGPT provided updated Python code. In this case, it is parsing the URL and checking what's the schema of the URL, and if the schema is empty, then it's appending Amazon.com beforehand. If it is something external, then simply that URL is skipped. Because I don't run the script on Amazon.com, I asked ChatGPT to replace the domain with thecodeholic.com. Unfortunately, ChatGPT replaced only the domain, not the URL. So I just immediately stopped it, didn't let it to finish the answer, and then I asked to replace the URL as well into https thecodeholic.com. And now ChatGPT gave me very accurate, very proper code what I needed. I copied the code and pasted it into app.py. I also cleared up urls.json, then I executed, and here it is. So this is exactly what I was looking for. Let's do one more project. This time, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create Python script which will generate random UIDs. I want it first to accept number as an input and then generate number of UIDs. I knew beforehand that this would be very easy for ChatGPT. It is importing UID package, accepting input as a number, and then iterating over the range of this number, and then just printing random UID. I wanted to make more complex, so I asked it not to use uuid package. So it has to implement the functionality on its own. And here is updated code from ChatGPT. This code guarantees that it will always generate UID, and that's going to be unique UID. It created its own generate UID function, and then the rest of the code is very similar. I copied the code, opened VS Code, and created random UIDs.py. I'm going to paste the code right here. Then I'm going to open terminal and execute the Python script. It asks me to enter the number. I'm going to enter 6, and I have unique UIDs. I'm going to execute this again, and I'm going to enter 10 in this case, and it generates 10 unique UIDs. Now, let's talk about the lessons I learned while I was working on these projects. Number one lesson I learned was that if you don't get desired response from ChatGPT on your first trial, try to formulate your questions differently. Also, try to debug your problems and know exact reason why it doesn't work, and then it will be much easier to ask ChatGPT how to fix that specific error, rather than just blindly asking that, hey, my application doesn't work, just fix it. Never take ChatGPT's code without fully understanding. There is no guarantee that there will not be any error in the code. Also, understanding the code will definitely help you to debug the problems in the future. ChatGPT makes mistakes. Very often, it realizes that it made a mistake and fixes that problems, but if it doesn't fix the problem, you should fix the problem. That's why understanding your code is very, very important. If you're stuck in conversation with ChatGPT, try to start building from scratch, from absolutely new chat in the ChatGPT. On second trial, ChatGPT will probably give you absolutely different approach. In my case, that was very helpful. Whenever you get some error, don't always ask ChatGPT to fix your problem. Just have a look at the error. Maybe it's super easy and you will spend much more time asking that question to ChatGPT and then reading the response rather than understanding the actual error, and then you could probably fix just in 5 seconds. And final, and the most important advice I can give you regarding ChatGPT is that use ChatGPT to speed up your process. Don't use ChatGPT to do your job. If you always give your job to ChatGPT, then it might even replace you. Who knows? Be smart and use ChatGPT creatively. That's it for today. If you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next time.